Welcome into the PFF NFL Daily. Today discussing Derek Carr getting benched by the Las Vegas Raiders. They're moving on from Carr for the rest of the regular season here, going with Jarrett Stidham. And of course, that poses the question, what's the future of the quarterback position in Vegas for the Raiders with Josh McDaniels as head coach? And also, what's the future for Derek Carr, Sam? There's already, I'll say this, we're a couple hours into this news. I've already seen people say Derek Carr locked in to the Colts, locked in to the Bucks. The Saints would be a good place. Washington would be a good place. There's already a lot of teams around the league that seem to be getting paired with Derek Carr. And I just want to say that is the beauty of Derek Carr, right? He is that classic mid-tier quarterback that one team wants to move on from, but other teams around the NFL would probably love to have.
Yeah, like we've seen in the past from Derek Carr, his ability is somewhere in that 8 to 12 to 15 type of range for quarterbacks, which is definitely good enough. The teams that really haven't been able to find a quarterback are absolutely in the market. So Indianapolis, that's been cycling through their QBs this season, he's better than all of those guys, particularly given the current state of Matt Ryan. Washington, he's better than either Taylor Heineke, Carson Wentz, or probably anybody else they could get this year. So there absolutely should be a bunch of teams in the market for Derek Carr. And the reason that they've benched him as opposed to just reach the end of the season and then decided that they wanted to move on is so that they can execute some kind of move so that they're not on the hook for $40 million next year contractually. If he gets hurt, if he can't pass a physical, all of a sudden all that money becomes guaranteed. And not only are the Raiders potentially stuck with him, but any trade they're trying to execute becomes immeasurably more difficult to achieve as well. So I think really this is a move to basically protect their options to get rid of Derek Carr in the offseason, harsh as that is for him.
Yeah, I mean, from a Carr perspective, if you look at his career, as you mentioned, he's, where would you rank him? I always use middle tier as QB 8 through 20, basically at any given time, particularly right now in the NFL. I do think that's where Carr has been. The thing that doesn't make a ton of sense is that this is his worst season in a while. When he had his lower graded seasons, 2017, 2018, especially take away his rookie season, he struggled there. But 2017 and 18, that was the last time he played this poorly. This is worse, really, than he has been since his rookie season. But there were reasons for that. They had just 18, they moved on from Amari Cooper. There were system changes. There were issues, on those teams. There was new scheme with John Gruden and all these different things throughout the years. But when you gave Carr the right supporting cast, when you gave him some weapons to throw the ball down the field, we've talked about how he's got the arm to be aggressive throwing the ball down the field more than some others. And we always wanted to see more of that from Derek Carr, last year and the year before, among the highest big-time throw rates in the NFL. The special stuff or the chunk plays are all available for Derek Carr. So long-winded way of saying he should have been better this year, right? Yeah. I know they didn't have Darren Waller. I know they didn't have Hunter Renfrow for much of the season, but they got Devontae Adams there. He should have been better this season, and it's curious that he's had his worst season since 2014.
Right, and I think they would have expected him to be better. Like when they brought in Josh McDaniels, one of the first things he did was sort of give an endorsement to Derek Carr and saying, no, I believe in Derek Carr. He can be the guy in this offense. And whether or not that was always just something he was saying for the media, or whether Derek Carr changed his mind over the course of the season with a dramatically subpar year relative to expectations, evidently his mind has been changed since that point. And I think it's reasonable. Like we've been kind of up and down on Derek Carr over the past few years. He really, for a while, had settled into that sort of really underwhelming, disappointing, median baseline since that great year of 2016. And just as you were sort of writing him off as a guy that has some serious parts missing to his game and always tended to come up, flat when you needed him the most, then he did step it up and you had a much better year and really the best season since that 2016 year, if not the best season period. And now he regresses again. So if you're trying to project what he is going forward, particularly if you're Josh McDaniels and you have him signed to this big contract, you're kind of like, well, am I going to get that guy back? And if I am, can it be for a period of years as opposed to one or two? Or like, is his realistic level actually closer to what we've seen the rest of the time? And every now and again, he's able to sort of raise his game for a season, but it's not what you can rely on. I mean, it does kind of make sense for them to try and move on from him, particularly if, a year two regime, if they know they have enough time to kind of start over, right, and reset and find a new quarterback and do it from the ground up, then I guess that makes a lot of sense.
DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL, is my go to when betting on the NFL this holiday season. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 on any NFL team to win their game and get $150 in free bets if they do. Check it out. Right now, everyone can earn up to 100% boost with DraftKings stepped up same game parlays. Go to the DraftKings Sportsbook app, place a same game parlay, and combine multiple bets like which team will win, player props, point totals, and more. The more legs you add, the bigger the boost, the bigger your shot to win big. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code PFF. Place a $5 bet on any NFL team to win their game and get $150 in free bets if they do. Only at DraftKings Sportsbook with the code PFF. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. I want to spin this forward to, okay, where does Derek Carr land, but also what do the Raiders do going forward? I'm just looking at the current top 10 in the NFL draft. The Texans at 1 certainly need a quarterback. The Lions at 4 probably need a quarterback. Actually, the Seahawks at 3 might need a quarterback with Geno Smith as a free agent. Then you have the Colts at 6, the Falcons at 7, the Panthers at 8, and then the Raiders at 10. All teams could be in that quarterback market, both in free agency and in the draft. Is there a fit there for Derek Carr? Or are the Raiders now a team that is completely locked into the draft, or perhaps a Tom Brady, Josh McDaniels reunion?
The other element here is that Derek Carr does have a no trade clause in his contract, so he has to approve wherever he's going to wind up, right? Which is the complicating element to all of this is, all right, you sat him down, you're going with Jarrett Stidham for the last couple of weeks, to see what the young guy has, whereas realistically all you're doing is protecting your quarterback so that you can actually get rid of him this offseason. But if you're going to trade him, Derek Carr has to be on board with it, which sort of potentially limits the field a little bit. Although, like a lot of teams that need a quarterback this offseason in a sort of rather unusual quirk of fate, they actually have pretty good teams around them. It's the quarterback that they're missing. So if you're talking about Washington or Detroit or New Orleans or, one of these teams that might be in the quarterback market, Tampa Bay, if they're going on without Tom Brady, actually a lot of these teams aren't bad. Like, they're not destinations that you would be like, there's no way I'm getting traded there. The only one that I think fits that kind of category is Houston, where if you're Derek Carr, I wouldn't imagine you want to wind up in Houston.
You don't want to be the next David Carr in Houston.
Absolutely not.
The Jets have been, mentioned quite a bit too. I mean, so there are a few of those teams, these potential playoff teams or fringe playoff teams, depending on how it lands. Teams like the Commanders, teams like the Jets, where they might look at Derek Carr as, okay, he's going to upgrade what we've had. It would be an interesting move for Washington, who has never been that close to the top of the draft to get their next guy, or at least not since Dwayne Haskins. They got him at 15. But since that point, it's been a revolving door of, bridge type of players, whether it's Taylor Heineke, whether it's Carson Wentz. They could go with Derek Carr here and feel like that's an upgrade. But it also could feel like, hey, we've gone down this path. Ryan Fitzpatrick last year. We've gone down the Band-Aid path before. With the Jets, Robert Saleh heading into year 3, they're going to probably feel like, okay, we are a quarterback away. We've added a ton of talent on both sides of the ball. The defense was looking good. Probably moving on from Zach Wilson as the starter. Is it a Derek Carr? Is it a Jimmy Garoppolo? The Carr, Garoppolo, and of course Tom Brady at 46 years old. That whole saga is going to be fascinating this offseason.
But it's also worth, like, a lot of these teams that might be in the quarterback market, and sure, the high end of Derek Carr is an upgrade for a lot of these teams. We are talking about a guy that does have a pretty big contract attached to him, right? And if you're looking at this year as a level of play, and this is a year where he had Devontae Adams and he had an offensive line that improved as the year went on, like an offensive-minded head coach. Like, right now, Derek Carr's PFF passing grade is worse than Mac Jones, Kenny Pickett, Jared Goff, Jimmy G, Daniel Jones. Like, it's worse than a lot of guys that you would intuitively say, well, he's just a better quarterback than those guys. So, if you're thinking about bringing in a Derek Carr as an upgrade, you have to kind of ask yourself, well, okay, how big of an upgrade is this? And is it worth the $40 million that it's going to come with.
But how much do you weigh this last year, the last thing we've seen, versus the
Yeah.
previous baseline, which is much higher? It's Sam. It still comes back to like this is a fascinating time in the NFL because in recent years we saw the Rams have a good starter in Jared Goff, try to upgrade, and they move on. They get Matthew Stafford. We saw the Niners try to do anything they could to get out from Jimmy Garoppolo, upgrade with the Trey Lance, and Jimmy Garoppolo is still good enough for them. It seems like the Raiders are making the same move, right? Carr is coming off his worst year since his rookie season, but they're saying we need to move on, but the rest of the league might be looking for Carr as an upgrade.
Yeah, and of course, the flip side of that is you need to be if you're the other side of the equation. How many teams are wanting to trade in to average? You know what I mean? Like we're in a
Right.
league where the trend is get rid of average and shoot for the moon. I don't know how many teams are going to be willing to go. We'll take average. Average would be great if we could just get average. That would be a dream for us. Like I mean, I'm sure there's a couple out there, but it can't be that many.
It's going to be another great QB carousel this offseason. Derek Carr benched in favor of Jarrett Stidham with the Raiders.